Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for May 7th, 2024. Today we're starting off in Las Vegas with a woman named Gail Phelps Fideli. She married Lee Phelps when she was 31 years old. They both wanted a child, and to do that, the couple needed artificial insemination with a donor. We saw Dr. Plautz, and he explained to us that it would come from Rocky Mountain Donor Bank in Wyoming, Gail said. Gail met Plautz for the procedure at his clinic when she was ovulating. It was Father's Day, June 17th, 1984, she recalled. 9 months later, Allison and Kevin were born. They were never told that the dad they grew up with was not their biological father. After Gail and Lee divorced, Gail struggled with the secret that Lee was not the twins' biological father. Around age 15, Gail felt the twins were old enough to understand and told them the truth. It was shocking to find out that my dad wasn't really my dad, Allison said. When both Allison and Kevin developed health problems, Gail sought to learn what she could from Dr. Plautz about her children's medical history. When asked about the donor, Dr. Plautz informed Gail that Rocky Mountain Donor Bank burned down and all the records were destroyed. A couple years after that, Allison says she decided to go and ask him herself, but she says Plautz told her the same story. So what did they decide to do? In 2023, they performed a DNA test. We did one of those ancestry DNA tests, Kevin explained, and up pops a bunch of half-siblings, and one of the last names was Plautz. And my sister immediately recognized the name. I was like, he's our father. The shock was even starker for Allison because as a teen, she had become one of Plautz's patients. The fact that he did a cervical screening on me and a breast examination, I feel completely violated, she said. Joseph Plautz, who was much older than Gail, died in August of 2015, years before Allison and Kevin learned that he, their mother's fertility doctor who delivered them and signed their birth certificates, was their biological father. Let's read a bit from Mr. Plautz's obituary. Joseph W. Plautz, MD, passed away August 22, 2015, at his home in Henderson, Nevada. He married Karen Lee Hinkle on June 22, 1967, and they were sealed in the Salt Lake Temple on February 11, 1975. He established Deseret Women's Care. The thousands of babies he delivered will not remember the songs he sang in the delivery room, but their mothers will never forget. He was an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, serving in many ward and stake callings, including bishop, first counselor in the stake presidency, stake mission president, gospel doctrine teacher, and home teacher. Throughout all of his callings, his devotion to service was evident. He was never as happy as when he was surrounded by the youth of the church, many of which could have been his own children, and community, and this dedication to children made him a marvelous father and grandfather. Next it lists various children. I dare say there are a few missing from the list. From 2 marriages, Plautz had 13 children, 31 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren, that people knew about. Some of them went to elementary school with us, said Allison. We lived right by them. We had no opportunity to know them. Everything was a lie. Kevin lives with the fear that he may have slept with his half-sister in the past growing up in Las Vegas. I'm unable to date because I was born and raised here, and I'm afraid I'm going to go on a date with my half-sister. While working on their case, they've made some key discoveries, including debunking Plautz's story about donor records being destroyed in a fire. An email from the Wyoming State Archive says, while the Rocky Mountain Donor Bank closed in 2009, we didn't find anything showing a fire. Donors are required to undergo screening to detect and prevent health issues that might affect any children resulting from artificial insemination. The lawsuit says Dr. Plautz did not undergo any such screening, and his DNA is problematic because it contains hereditary and genetic conditions which give rise to serious health risks. Allison says the half-siblings she's reached out to have mixed reactions. We've been told that we're liars even though we have DNA proof to match with them. They don't want to believe that their father is capable of this. Because he was such a good Mormon. Let's read something that's being talked about on Reddit. Have you heard about secret homes for pregnant Mormon teen girls? These homes were allegedly operated for many decades in the late 90s. The homes were large rented homes with many rooms, 2 to 3 girls per room. The girls had to cook and clean and clean and clean. They were not allowed to attend the local ward or even visit it. They held church on Sunday inside the home with the LDS Family Services providing the priest leader to bless the sacrament. The girls were given motherhood classes, but then told they had to give up their babies to be adopted by Mormon couples who couldn't have children. The girls were not given a dime, and if they complained, they were threatened with excommunication and exposure as bad girls. How many young Mormon teen girls were involved in these secret homes run by LDS Services? I don't know. That is a great secret. Mormon women don't like to talk about it because that would be revealing they were naughty as teen girls, and they don't want their current husbands and children and grandchildren to know that. That post spurred a lot of people sharing personal experiences. Here are a few. I was adopted through LDS Social Services through one of these homes in Arizona, 1969. The consequences for my birth mother were horrible and long-lasting. It wasn't great as the trafficked child either. This happened clear back in the 60s and 70s. They used to drug them as well, so they couldn't remember details. They had to give birth in an LDS hospital, and the LDS Church has denied giving these birth mothers access to their own medical records to help them find their children. It's highly illegal, but they still do it. I have a family member I'm trying to help find her daughter she gave birth to at 16 in one of these homes in the 60s. When I got pregnant at 17 in 1990, I was offered a place to stay with other girls in my situation, where I could finish school and not bring shame to my family. I was told that they would provide all necessary medical care and that my baby would be adopted by a righteous Mormon family that could not have kids. They basically told me that this was God's plan for me. I politely declined the offer, left the church, and got emancipated from my parents. I grew up in a home in the 80s where we housed pregnant teens from out of town. I specifically remember 3 different girls. After they had their babies and placed them for adoption, they went back home or off to BYU because they graduated early. So yes, these places were very much the norm. For the most part, these girls were just added as part of our family. We treated them kindly and they had their own room. My mom was very attentive to them and tried to make them as comfortable and loved as possible, but I do remember one girl was severely depressed and homesick. She didn't want to be there at all. I would sit outside her door as a little girl trying to make her feel better and come out. As I reflect on it, I feel terribly sad for those girls and the families who house them. The purity culture is so damaging. How many of these girls wanted to keep their babies? I was a birth parent coordinator for LDS Family Services in the 1990s. I went around to different wards and spoke about the importance of having children sealed. I also worked with pregnant teens and taught parenting classes. I also had 2 sisters, one I was not raised with, who were sent away to have their babies in secret so they could be adopted and then sealed to a good LDS family. I am pro-adoption, but I am not pro-adoption the way LDS Family Services did it. There was so much shame. I know that my sisters felt like they had no options. I was 12 when my older sister got pregnant. I was told to lie to everyone and say she went to live in Atlanta for the summer so she could take special cello lessons. It changed her forever. It might be time for someone with the talent and resources to track down other people who had these experiences and do a documentary about it. This seems like a story that needs to be told. Next up, General Conference Leadership Meeting, April of 2024. Patterns of Personal Apostasy, Instruction from President Dallin Oaks. Apostasy refers to a person's abandonment of the most fundamental, most basic religious beliefs, such as belief in God or the restoration of priesthood authority. Patterns of personal apostasy include the following: focusing on past prophets rather than living, and this is my favorite part because he's about to quote a past prophet to prove his point. They who garnish the sepulchres of the dead prophets begin now by stoning the living ones. They return to the pronouncements of the dead leaders and interpret them to be incompatible with present programs. Teachings of Spencer W. Kimball, 1982. Dallin, come on, man. He's telling people to focus on the present prophets and not the past ones by quoting a past prophet to prove his point. Contending that current religious leaders are not in harmony with the latest discoveries of science or other scholarship or political correctness. Proposing one's own special learning or position as a substitute for prophetic leadership. Persisting in teaching subjects on which the Lord has not chosen to give more revelation at this time. The wisest course may be not to contest a person's objections to church activities or doctrine or personnel. The only and ultimate treatment for those who are in or seriously headed toward apostasy is to increase their faith in Jesus Christ. If a person's apostasy or tendency toward apostasy is based on a highly focused and difficult challenge, there will be a tendency to try to take it head on. And then he's going to say something incredibly profound, because lately, Dallin Oaks has been saying the quiet parts out loud. But we do not know enough about the will of the Lord and the fullness of church doctrine to satisfy. Thank you for being very clear on that, Dallin Oaks. An attempt to persuade with additional resources does not help. There is no answer but faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, faith in the restoration of the gospel, and patience in waiting for answers when the Lord chooses to reveal. And then to finish off today, I have a quote, but it feels very applicable to everyone who says, why, when you leave the church, can't you just leave it alone? Abusers often use the narrative that you talking about the abuse is just as harmful as the abuse itself. It's not. Also, you have a right to talk about the things that happened to you. The church's reputation is not ruined by your words. It is ruined by their actions. And that is your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.